Most drivers don't realize this yet, but a brand new driving law just went into effect. And if you're driving the same way you did last year, you could already be breaking it. Not tomorrow, not next month, right now. People are getting pulled over, fined hundreds of dollars, and in some cases, even facing arrest, all because of rules that quietly changed without any real warning. And according to recent surveys, more than half of drivers have no idea these changes even exist. That's the scary part. You don't get a warning for not knowing the law, you just get the ticket. And there's one rule in particular, number 4, that's catching more drivers off guard than any other, with penalties so steep that a single mistake can ruin your entire year. Stay with me because missing this could cost you instantly. As we rolled into 2026, 10 major driving laws changed across the country. Some of them are federal, some are state level, but every single one affects how you're expected to drive starting right now. And what makes the situation dangerous is how quietly it all happened. There were no breaking news alerts, no letters in the mail, no clear announcements warning drivers that enforcement was about to begin. Meanwhile, police departments didn't wait. They're already enforcing these rules during routine traffic stops. And drivers are finding out the hard way that I didn't know doesn't get you out of a citation. If you're still driving like it's 2025, you might be setting yourself up for a very expensive surprise the next time you see flashing lights behind you. So, in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what changed, one law at a time, in plain language, so you know what to avoid, what to adjust, and how to protect yourself before you get pulled over. Hi, I'm Sophia from Global Visa Guide. I spend hours digging through legal updates and enforcement changes so you don't have to learn about them the hard way on the side of the road. And the first law we need to talk about is already one of the most expensive mistakes drivers are making in 2026 because it applies nationwide and there's zero wiggle room. Starting January 2026, a new federal distracted driving standard went into effect, and it completely changes how phone use is treated behind the wheel. Here's the rule, plain and simple. If a police officer sees you holding your phone while your vehicle is in motion, that's an automatic violation. It does not matter if you're stopped at a red light. It does not matter if traffic is crawling. It does not matter if you're just checking directions for 1 second. If the car is on, you're in the driver's seat, and the phone is in your hand, you're breaking federal law. The first offense starts at a $250 fine. The second offense doubles, and every violation adds points to your license, which means your insurance company will absolutely notice. For many drivers, the insurance increase ends up costing more than the ticket itself. Now, a lot of people think they found a loophole by putting the phone on speaker and holding it near their face. That does not count as hands-free. The law is very clear. Hands-free means the device must be mounted or integrated into your vehicle system. If it's in your hand at all, it's considered handheld use. Voice commands, dashboard mounts, and built-in car systems are allowed. Everything else is not. This is why you're seeing so many drivers getting pulled over and arguing on the roadside only to leave with a citation anyway. The fix is simple and cheap. A phone mount and voice controls will cost you far less than one ticket, not to mention the long-term insurance hit. And if you want to stay ahead of changes like this, instead of finding out when it's too late, make sure you're subscribed to Global Visa Guide because this is just the first one, and the next laws get even more confusing. The second law is already causing confusion on highways, and a lot of drivers are getting ticketed because they only half understand it. In 2026, more than 20 states rolled out a new right lane usage rule on multi-lane highways, and it changes how you're supposed to position your car during peak traffic hours. On highways with 3 or more lanes, the far right lane is now designated primarily for through traffic only during rush hours. That means if you're not planning to exit within the next couple of miles, you're expected to move out of the right lane and use the center or left lanes instead. The goal is to keep the right lane clear so drivers can merge more smoothly and traffic doesn't bottleneck at on-ramps. Where people are getting tripped up is assuming this rule applies all day long. In most states, it doesn't. It usually only applies during defined morning and evening rush hours, and those times vary depending on where you live. Outside of those hours, the right lane works the same way it always has. The problem is that officers are enforcing this aggressively during peak times, and fines typically range from $150 to $300. So if you're cruising in the right lane during rush hour with no exit coming up, you might be breaking the law without realizing it. This is one of those rules where checking your state's exact language can save you a completely avoidable ticket. The third law is actually one that can work in your favor, but only if you know how to use it. Speed cameras have been spreading everywhere, and a lot of drivers feel like they exist more for revenue than safety. In response, several states passed new laws in 2026 requiring clear advanced warning before you enter a speed camera zone. In most places, that means visible signage at least 500 FT before the camera. If you receive a speed camera ticket and there was no warning sign, or if that sign was blocked by trees, construction, or poor placement, you may be able to challenge the ticket and get it dismissed. And this isn't theoretical. Drivers are winning these cases. If a ticket shows up in your mailbox, go back to the location if possible and document everything. Take photos, look for signage. If it's missing or obscured, file a contest with your local traffic court. Courts are taking these challenges seriously because the intent of the law is safety, not surprise penalties. And in just the first months of 2026, hundreds of tickets have already been thrown out because cities failed to update their signage in time. Now, because the next law is the one catching the most people completely off guard, don't go anywhere. Number 4 is where drivers are making the most expensive mistake of all. Before we move on, let me ask you something real quick. Are you still driving the same way you always have when an ambulance or fire truck comes up behind you? Because if you are, this next law is exactly how drivers are getting nailed with massive fines without understanding what they did wrong. This is the rule that most people miss. This is the one that officers are watching for. And this is the one that turns what feels like a polite gesture into a $500 mistake if you do it incorrectly. Here's what changed in 2026. The emergency vehicle yielding law didn't just get stricter, it got specific. In the past, the rule was simple. Pull over and let emergency vehicles pass. Now, there's a mandatory procedure, and if you don't follow it step by step, you're in violation. When you see or hear an emergency vehicle approaching from behind with lights or sirens, you must move to the right side of the road and come to a complete stop. Not slow down, not roll forward. Stop completely. And here's the part almost everyone gets wrong. You are required to remain stopped until that emergency vehicle has fully passed you and is at least 200 feet ahead before you start moving again. Most drivers instinctively begin driving as soon as the ambulance or fire truck clears their bumper. That is now illegal. 200 FT is more distance than most people think. On a highway, it's roughly 4 to 5 car lengths. Another way to picture it is about 2-3 the length of a football field. Officers are actively watching for drivers who move too soon, especially in busy traffic corridors. The penalty is serious. In many states, the fine starts around $500 and mandatory traffic school is often included. The reason lawmakers crack down this hard is because too many secondary accidents were happening when drivers re-entered traffic too quickly and collided with emergency vehicles or other cars reacting late. So the new rule is simple but strict. Pull over. Stop completely. Wait until the emergency vehicle is clearly far ahead, then proceed carefully. Remember this one because it's the fastest way to turn a good intention into an expensive citation. The 5th law is one that a lot of drivers don't think applies to them until it suddenly does. If you drive an electric vehicle or you're even considering buying one, this change matters. In 2026, many cities and states made it officially illegal to park in an EV charging spot unless your vehicle is actively charging, and it goes further than most people realize. Even if your car is plugged in, once it reaches a full charge, you're on the clock. Most places now allow only a short grace period, usually 10 to 15 minutes, to move your vehicle. After that, you can be ticketed for occupying the space. Fines typically start around $100 and can climb higher in areas with high EV demand. Enforcement is no longer just random either. Some charging stations have sensors that notify parking enforcement when a car is fully charged, and in other areas, drivers report violations through dedicated apps. The solution here is simple. Use your vehicle's charging notifications or set a timer on your phone so you know exactly when charging finishes. These rules aren't just about penalties. They're meant to keep chargers available for everyone. But if you ignore them, the fine is very real. The sixth law is one that has parents furious and drivers shocked because it dramatically expands when school zone rules apply. For years, most drivers learned that school zones were enforced during narrow windows, usually early morning and mid-afternoon. In 2026, many states changed that completely. School zone hours were expanded to cover before school programs, after school activities, and extended pickup times. In some areas, that means enforcement as early as 6 in the morning and as late as 6 in the evening. And here's the part that really hurts. The fines have doubled. Speeding in a school zone now often starts at $500, and points on your license are mandatory. In certain states, going more than 15 miles per hour over the school zone limit can even be charged as a criminal offense, not just a traffic violation. That can mean court appearances and potential jail time. The reason for the crackdown is sobering. Data showed that many accidents involving children were happening outside traditional school hours during activities and staggered pickups. So now, if you see a school zone sign, you need to slow down and stay alert. Even if it's early morning or early evening, those flashing lights may still be active, and the consequences of ignoring them are severe. Before we continue, a quick legal note. Everything you're hearing here is for educational purposes only. Traffic laws can vary widely depending on your state and even your city. So always check with your local DMV or a qualified attorney if you need advice for your specific situation. That said, knowing these updates puts you far ahead of most drivers on the road. And if this information is already saving you from potential tickets, imagine what you'll learn in the next Global Visa Guide video, where I break down the most common mistakes drivers make during traffic stops that instantly make officers more suspicious. Make sure you're subscribed to Global Visa Guide so you don't miss that, because those mistakes can turn a simple stop into something much worse. The seventh law deals with dash cams and recording traffic stops, and this one has changed in ways that actually benefit drivers, but only if you understand the limits. In 2026, several states passed laws that clearly allow drivers to record their interactions with police using dash cams or other recording devices. That means you generally cannot be penalized just for recording a traffic stop in your own vehicle. Dash cam footage can be extremely valuable if you need to defend yourself in traffic court or challenge a citation. However, where drivers get into trouble is what they do with that footage afterward. In many states, posting dash cam video online without blurring the faces and license plates of other people can violate privacy laws. If you share footage publicly without consent, you could face civil lawsuits that cost far more than any traffic ticket. The safest approach is to use dash cam recordings for legal protection, not social media content. If you're unsure, check your state's specific rules on recording and sharing. A dash cam can be one of your best defenses, but only if you use it responsibly. The eighth law is one of the most controversial changes of 2026, and it's putting a lot of drivers at risk without them realizing it. As more states legalized cannabis, lawmakers moved quickly to tighten DUI enforcement around it. Several states have now adopted what are called per se THC limits, similar to the 0.08 blood alcohol limit for alcohol. In practical terms, that means if you're pulled over and a blood test shows THC above a specific threshold, often around 5 nanograms per milliliter, you can be charged with DUI automatically. And here's the problem. Unlike alcohol, THC stays in your system long after the effects wear off. You could feel completely sober, drive perfectly, and still test over the legal limit days after using cannabis. While some states allow drivers to challenge these charges by arguing lack of impairment, it's difficult, expensive, and far from guaranteed. The safest advice is simple but frustrating. If you use cannabis, even legally, avoid driving for at least 24 hours. And if you're a frequent user, understand that you may test positive even when you're not impaired at all. It may not feel fair, but it's how these laws are currently written, and drivers are learning that the hard way. The ninth law is especially important if you're a parent or a teen driver watching this yourself. In 2026, several states extended restrictions on teen drivers, even after they receive a full license. In many places, drivers under 18 are now subject to mandatory nighttime curfews, typically between 11 at night and 5 in the morning. There are exceptions for work, school events, and family emergencies, but teens are often required to carry proof of where they're going. If they're pulled over during curfew hours without a valid reason, the ticket usually goes to the parents, and first offenses can easily exceed $300. Passenger restrictions have also tightened. Some states now limit teen drivers to one non-family passenger under 21, even if they've been licensed for more than a year. These rules exist because crash data consistently shows that serious teen accidents happen late at night and with multiple passengers in the car. So, if you're a parent, it's critical to talk through these rules with your teen. And if you're a teen driver, understand that these restrictions aren't about punishment. They're about keeping you alive during the riskiest driving years. The 10th and final law affects far more drivers than most people realize, even if you've never sat in a self-driving car. In 2026, multiple states passed new regulations that clarify who is legally responsible when an autonomous vehicle is involved in a crash. The big shift is this: if you're hit by a self-driving vehicle that was operating in full autonomous mode, liability now generally falls on the company that developed the autonomous system, not the person sitting behind the wheel. That's a major change, but there's an important catch. This protection only applies if the vehicle was truly in full autonomous mode at the time of the accident. If the system issued warnings that were ignored, or if the human driver had any level of control, responsibility can shift right back to the driver. That's why documentation matters more than ever. If you're involved in an accident with an autonomous vehicle, you need to gather as much information as possible at the scene. Get a police report. Determine whether the vehicle was in autonomous mode. If you can, request data logs or system status information. This is still new legal territory, and insurance companies are figuring it out as they go. The more evidence you have, the better protected you'll be. So, here's what you need to remember. 10 major driving laws changed in 2026, and most drivers still have no idea. From the federal handheld device ban to the expanded school zone rules, these aren't suggestions. They're laws that are already being enforced. And number 4, that emergency vehicle yielding rule is the one catching the most people completely off guard. Stop completely, wait until the emergency vehicle is at least 200 feet ahead, and only then move again. I spent hours researching these changes, so you don't have to learn about them through a ticket or worse. The best way to protect yourself is to stay informed, because more updates are coming throughout 2026. Subscribe to Global Visa Guide, turn on notifications, and make sure you're always driving legally and safely. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Global Visa Guide video, where I break down exactly what to say and what not to say when you get pulled over.